There's nothing quite like that unmistakable rustle of a crisp packet, whether it was the crinkle of foil in the winter playground, the soft crackle in the back of a black and white TV lounge, or the muted crumple on a rainy walk home. Vanished crisps of days gone by, nods to those snacks that once lined tuck shop shelves, ice cream vans and your mam's shopping basket, ranges and flavours you savoured long before health labels or new recipe stamps took over. Let's wander down memory lane and rediscover those long-forgotten packets that made childhood crunch a little more colourful. Skydivers were one of those brilliantly quirky snacks from the 1970s and 80s that only Britain could have come up with. Produced by KP Snacks, they were corn-based puffs moulded into tiny stick-figure divers, arms stretched wide as if frozen mid-leap. It was this playful design that made them instantly stand out on shop shelves and in school lunchboxes. Flavours usually came in the tried and true favourites, beef and salt and vinegar, both delivering a sharp, tongue-tingling coating of seasoning that clung to your fingertips. Children would often play with them before eating, lining up their little divers or pretending they were jumping off the edge of a desk. They were affordable too, often priced just right for pocket money, making them a staple of tuck shops and corner newsagents. But by the late 1980s, KP Snacks began cutting back on novelty shapes in favour of their core products, and skydivers quietly vanished. They've never been reissued, but their reputation lingers. For many, the memory of ripping open a bag of these crunchy little divers is as clear as the taste itself. If ever there was a crisp that felt tailor-made for the pub, it was Brannigan's roast beef and mustard. Launched in the 1980s by KP Snacks, they came in thick foil packets that promised something heartier than your average crisp. And they delivered. Each bite packed a 1-2 punch, the deep, savoury taste of roast beef followed by the fiery, nose-tingling mustard that could clear your sinuses in an instant. It wasn't a snack for the faint-hearted, but that's exactly why people loved them. They became a staple alongside a pint of bitter, the sort of crisp you could imagine eating by the fire on a cold evening. Unlike lighter, more playful snacks of the era, Brannigan's had a mature, almost indulgent edge, appealing to adults as much as kids. For many, they were the best crisps in the world, title affectionately given by fans on forums and nostalgia sites. Sadly, in September 2020, KP announced they were axing the Brannigan's line due to declining demand. Petitions on change.org still circulate, proving just how sorely missed these mustard-stained legends are. If you were a child in the 80s or early 90s, football-crazy crisps were almost as important as your panini stickers. Each packet was themed around football, with players, balls and goalposts decorating the bag, and inside you found little football-shaped maize puffs. The flavour was a kind of tangy cheese and onion, which were not too strong, but zesty enough to keep you coming back for more. They were marketed directly to kids who loved the game, often with football trivia or collectible cards inside the pack, which made them doubly exciting. You'd pick them up after school at the corner shop, tear them open, and munch them with your mates while having a kickabout. Parents often popped them into lunchboxes, and plenty of kids remember trading them in the playground. The crisp itself was light and crunchy, the kind you could eat handful after handful of without realising the bag was empty. Few crisps caused as much chatter in the 80s as Hedgehog Flavour crisps. Produced by Hedgehog Foods in 1981, the name alone raised eyebrows and set imaginations running. Despite the cheeky branding, they were of course flavoured with pork seasoning, no hedgehogs involved. The packets, with their rustic design, stood out on shelves and became an instant talking point. Kids loved daring each other to try them, while adults often bought a pack for the novelty. The taste itself was savoury and meaty, somewhat like roast pork with a herbal edge, and the crunch was satisfyingly hearty. They were particularly popular in pubs, sitting right beside the scampi fries and pork scratchings, often enjoyed with a pint. Hedgehog crisps even faced a short-lived controversy when trading standards questioned the name, but the company was allowed to keep it after clarifying no hedgehogs were harmed. That little scandal only boosted their popularity. Though they disappeared by the 90s, they remain one of Britain's most mischievous crisp flavours, remembered fondly for their boldness as much as their taste. Now this one will bring back memories for anyone who grew up in the 70s and 80s. Smith's horror bags weren't just crisps, they were an event. The packaging itself was enough to thrill a child with spooky little monsters, gothic fonts and flavours named after ghouls. You had fangs, cheese and onion style, bats, salt and vinegar, spiders, pickled onion, and even ghosts, ready salted. The crisps inside were shaped to match the names, which made them an absolute treasure in the playground. You'd compare shapes with your mates, pretending to chomp bats' wings or a ghost's head, all while licking the tangy flavouring off your fingers. The taste wasn't vastly different from other crisps of the day, but it was the sheer novelty that stuck in your mind. They were usually sold in little paper bags at tuck shops, sweet shops and the corner newsagent, often near the chewy bars and cola cubes. Discontinued far too soon, horror bags were the sort of fun, cheeky snack that made the 70s a bit brighter, and many still wish they'd make a Halloween comeback. Seabrooks, with their crinkle-cut crunch, always stood out from the flatter varieties like Walker's. Their smoky bacon flavour was a firm northern favourite, especially in chip shops and little corner grocers across Yorkshire and beyond. The thick ridges seemed to hold more seasoning, so every bite gave you that unmistakable, salty, smoky hit. The packet itself was a plain affair, usually in warm reddish tones, but it was the flavour that did the talking. They were the sort of crisps you'd have on a damp Saturday afternoon, walking back from the shops with a hot paper bag of chips in one hand and a packet of Seabrooks in the other. Plenty of families remember having them with a sandwich at tea time, the strong bacon taste pairing perfectly with a slab of cheese on bread. Though Seabrooks still exist today, the exact smoky bacon flavour of those days is sorely missed by many. Creamy white, hollow little tubes of airy delight, Burton's potato puffs were one of those simple snacks that defined childhood trips to the corner shop. First appearing in the 1960s, they quickly became a playground staple right through the 1970s, 80s, and even into the 1990s. Light as a feather, each puff seemed to dissolve on the tongue, giving you that satisfying crunch then melt texture that no other crisp quite managed. They came in homely classic flavours, ready salted, cheese and onion, beef and tomato, each dusted with a fine seasoning that left just enough on your fingers to lick clean afterwards. They were cheap too, often only a few pence a bag, making them the perfect choice for pocket money treats. You'd spot them stacked in corner shops, vending machines, and even tucked into school tuck shops. Their bright packets almost begging to be picked up. Sadly, these little balls of joy were last seen in 1997, and never after that. A crisp truly missed. Before Monster Munch became the home of pickled onion and roast beef, there was a cheese and onion variety that plenty of children swore by. The bright green packet was unmistakable, and inside were the familiar oversized claws that made Monster Munch so iconic. The flavour itself was classic British with its tangy onion, balanced with creamy cheese. These were crisps you could smell the second someone opened a bag in the playground. They were particularly popular in school tuck shops during the 80s, the perfect partner to a carton of Umbongo or Panda Pops. The crunch was massive, the kind that left little bits stuck in your teeth, and the flavour powder coated your fingers so much you'd be licking them long after the crisps were gone. For reasons still not fully clear, Walker's retired the flavour in the 90s, focusing instead on pickled onion, roast beef and flamin' hot. Smith's had a real talent for shaping snacks in fun and unusual ways, and their savoury straws were no exception. These crunchy, hollow tubes were like little edible building blocks. Kids would often play with them before eating, slotting them onto their fingers like rings or using them as pretend straws. though they never lasted long once you took a bite. The flavour was a simple but tasty savoury cheese, salty enough to satisfy but not overpowering. They came in small brightly coloured packets, often sold in multi-packs at supermarkets or tucked into corner shop displays. In the 70s and 80s, they were a regular feature of packed lunches and birthday parties, sitting proudly alongside the Space Raiders and Wotsits. The texture was lighter than Quavers, but with more crunch, giving them a unique place in the crisp world. Sadly, Smiths phased them out, as their product line was slimmed down. But anyone who remembers biting the ends off and pretending to sip pop through them still smiles at the memory. Burton's Piglets were one of those cheeky little snacks that defined the 80s. Sold in pink packets with cartoon piggies on the front. They were crunchy, pig-shaped maize snacks with a smoky bacon flavouring. The fun, playful shapes made them an instant hit with children, who would proudly show off a whole pig before biting off the ears or tail first. The bacon taste was strong, a little saltier than Frazzles, and the crunch was hearty enough to satisfy. They weren't just found in supermarkets, as plenty of corner shops and even school tuck shops stocked them, which meant they were a common sight stuffed into lunchboxes. Some pubs even had them alongside the nuts and pork scratchings, giving adults a more playful alternative. Burton's eventually focused on biscuits like wagon wheels and jammy Dodgers, and Piglets faded away. Potato triangles were one of those crisps that seemed ordinary at first glance, but had a loyal following. As the name suggests, they were triangular-shaped potato snacks with a crunchy, ridged texture that held onto the flavouring beautifully. Most people recall them coming in cheese or salt and vinegar varieties, though a spicy tomato also did the rounds. They were particularly popular in the 80s and 90s, often spotted in multi-packs at supermarkets or bought in newsagents by kids on the way home from school. The novelty of the triangular shape gave them a playful edge, and plenty of kids would arrange them into little patterns before eating. The taste was sharp and Moorish, with that familiar British crisp tang. Today, they've all but vanished, remembered mostly through nostalgia groups and old adverts. Yet for those who grew up with them, potato triangles were a comforting, dependable crisp, the sort you always seem to find in the kitchen cupboard, ready for a quick snack after tea or a late-night nibble. Kettle chips have always been known for their bold flavours, and salsa and mesquite was perhaps their most daring of the 90s. The bag carried a distinctive, rustic look, and the crisps themselves were thick-cut, crunchy, and packed with smoky, tangy seasoning. The mesquite gave them a deep, barbecue-like smokiness, while the salsa element added a zesty, almost tomato chili tang. They felt grown-up compared to the everyday salt and vinegar, and many people remember first trying them at dinner parties or as part of a pub spread, rather than in the school playground. They paired beautifully with a cold beer or a glass of wine, which gave them a bit of sophistication in the crisp world. For a time, they were a cult favourite, especially among those looking for something a little different to the usual British flavours. Sadly, Kettle retired the flavour, leaving many fans searching for something similar. Even today, people reminisce about that perfect balance of smoky and tangy that salsa and mesquite delivered so well. Now this one really takes us back to the Northeast in the 70s. Tudor crisps were a much-loved brand across the region, and their mint sauce flavour has gone down in history as one of the boldest crisp experiments ever attempted. The packets were green and white, and when you opened one, you were greeted with a sharp, tangy aroma that really did smell like the stuff you'd pour over lamb on a Sunday roast. The flavour itself was an odd mix, the coolness of mint with a vinegary kick, but somehow it worked, at least for those adventurous enough to try it. These crisps were especially popular in Newcastle and Sunderland, often bought in corner shops or from little family grocers. The flavour became a bit of a local legend. People still talk about them with a mix of fondness and disbelief. They didn't last long nationally, but in the Northeast, Tudor's mint sauce crisps became a part of crisp folklore. It was the sort of flavour that made you say, only Tudor would try that? Perhaps the most iconic of the long-lost crisps, Chipmunk's OXO flavour was the king of savoury snacks in the 70s. Made in collaboration with the OXO Cube brand, these crisps were bursting with a rich, beefy flavour that genuinely reminded you of a steaming Sunday gravy. The packets were a simple, bold red with the OXO logo front and centre, and you didn't mistake them for anything else. They had a salty, meaty punch that made them ideal for munching with a pint in the pub, or as a hearty after-school treat. Many adults remember sneaking a bag alongside a lunchtime sandwich at work. The flavour being so satisfying, it felt almost like a meal in itself. Chipmunk also did other varieties like the much-loved Smoky bacon, but it was the OXO crisps that became a true legend. They disappeared in the late 70s, leaving fans heartbroken, and no brand has ever quite recaptured that deep, beefy taste. For many, Chipmunk OXO crisps sit at the very top of the bring them back list. And that's it for today's trip down memory lane. Give it a like if you remembered some of the crunchy delights you used to have. And don't forget to subscribe for more information and nostalgia. See you next time.